Hello and welcome to Crusader Kings II. I'm gonna run through a playthrough of this game, and gonna sort of make it a little more like a tutorial, so that people can learn, how to play the game, how to approach the game. Primarily because this game can get very daunting to look at with all the menus and everything, and a lot of the rules of warfare are very specific, and a lot of times they don't make any sense. So at least any sense to beginners. So with that in mind, let's start a single player game. I'm currently running all of the DLCs. I own all the DLCs. I'm not running Sunset Invasion just because I want it to be totally historical. And Sunset Invasion is sort of like a fantasy what-if scenario, which deals with Aztecs coming and invading Western Europe. So we're going to start up a new game. So we start the earliest era, and as opposed to playing one of these bigwigs who have already made it, I want to play a guy who is going to build up his empire into, starting from like a duchy, say, and becoming a kingdom, and hopefully in the future an empire. So let's go to custom game setup. Now, the cool part about this game is that if you have just the base game, you can play pretty much any one of the Western European powers. If you have the base game, the earliest age that you can start is 1066. If you get the Old Gods expansion, you can go back to 867. If you get Charlemagne, you can go back to 769. If you get the Sword of Islam, which is this one, you can play as one of the Arab powers. If you get the Legacy of Rome, you can play as, I'm pretty sure it's the Byzantine Empire. This spot right here is where the Sunset Invasion goes. If you play the Republic, then you can play either as Venice or Amalfi. If you get the Old Gods, you can play as one of these guys, the Vikings and the tribesmen sort of guys. If you do the Sons of Abraham, you can play the Sons of Abraham. I forget what it adds. It may add the papacy, I think, and also there's a couple of Jewish tribes around in here that you can play as. The Rajas of India means that you can play as one of the Rajas of India. Charlemagne gives you the ability to go back to 769. And then the last one is the Way of Life, which is the one that I just got. It gives you focuses. I've only just briefly looked into it, so that'll all be new to me, pretty much. So anyway, so that's all the DLCs. We can start the game as a random character by clicking here. We can pretty much play as any one of these territories. But I am going to play as Holland right here. Now that's King Carl. He owns all of West Francia right here. Okay, but if I click it again, I get the guy who is in charge of Holland, and that's the Duke, Duke Anselm. Okay, and normally I would play Iron Man mode enabled, because I don't believe in, I believe that, you know, once you make a decision, that's it. But I'm going to leave Iron Man mode disabled for this tutorial series in case something crazy happens with the video. You know, the video crashes out or something like that. I'll be able to go back and remake a video from an old save game, doing the same things that I was doing. Anyway, if you have the DLC for it, these are all the major DLCs. There's minor DLCs which give you music and stuff, and other little things too. One of them is the ruler designer. I can go in and change my guy and set up his attributes and everything like that if I want to. But I'm not going to do that. We're just going to leave him as he is. Okay. You'll notice when I wand over him that Duke Anselm is the Duke of Holland and the Duke of Brabant. And he's 48 years old. Both of those things are going to be an issue when I first start out. It makes it a little more challenging. But let's get into the game. So, I picked Holland because the start of it at this point is a little challenging. And it's a good example of, you know, you drop into a game and, oh my gosh, what do you do? So here we go. The game starts out paused. Whoops. The game starts out paused. Okay, I can unpause it using the spacebar or the plus and minus keys. Can change the speed of the game. Up in the top row, I've got my gold, which is the wealth that I can spend. I have prestige, which is how nobles view me, in, you know, how essentially famous I am amongst the nobles. Piety is how well I am received by the priesthood and the papacy, or whoever my religious people are. The next one is my domain size. That word that looks like demesne is actually pronounced domain. My domain size is 7 out of 4, and it gives me the calculation of how it came up with 4. So I have more counties than I'm supposed to. So that's another thing we're going to have to deal with. The next one is my vassal limit. I can have up to 27 vassals. I don't have any right now. So that's another issue. And then this lists all of my, this is my realms. This is all of my holdings. So right now you'll see that it says Duke Anselm of Holland. I have 7 territories by myself and a total of 22. So, and those are all the holdings. Those are all baronies. Mayors and bishops and barons are all considered like barony class, which is below county. So those are like towns and bishoprics, which are basically like churches, and castles, barons' castles. And then finally, it's my score. My score starts out at 0. I only score in the game when the current leader dies. So what happens is my prestige plus my piety get added together and added to the current score. And then I basically take on the role of the heir. Okay? So here's Duke Anselm over here. If I click on him, This shows me basically all the information about him. Okay, right now he's 48 years old. He's reigning in Holland. His religious head is the Pope. He's the heir to 2 baronies. His liege is King Carl of West Francia. Okay, and it shows me his opinion of me and my opinion of him. I'm not married. This guy has no wife. His heir is his half-brother, which is the Count of Jülich and the Count of Luxembourg. This is his shield for the Duchy of Holland. This is his family crest. Okay, if I click here, I can show the dynasty, which is basically the tree of you know, the whole dynasty that this guy belongs to. He's Catholic. I have dynasty tree, family tree, realm tree. We're going to look at those a little later. He's Frankish. That's his culture. So anybody who's not Frankish is considered to be a foreigner to him. I have stats. I've got a diplomacy of 7 with a state. The state diplomacy is my diplomacy plus my counselor's diplomacy. So I have a 7 personally, 29 for state. I have an 8 martial ability, 22 total. I have a 10 stewardship, 23 for total. I have an intrigue of 7, 23 total. And I've got a learning of 19, which is huge. And a state learning of 34. Then it shows me a couple of other things. Here's my domain, which you saw over here. Here's my army levies. This is the amount of armies that I can raise from both my domain personally and what my vassals will give me. Here's my gold, here's my prestige, here's my piety. Over here it lists all of my titles. So I'm the duchy, I am the Duke of Holland, the Duke of Brabant, the County of Brabant, so the Count of Brabant, the Count of Breda, the Count of Sticht, the Count of Hainaut, the Count of Holland, the Count of Zealand, and the Count of West Friesland. So, what does that mean? Well, here's West Friesland right here. So I own that. I own Holland, I own Zealand, I own Sticht, I own Breda, Brabant, and Hainaut. The Duchy of Holland is these 4, and the Duchy of Brabant is these 3. Now, I own both of them. Well, we'll get into that in just a little bit. So, underneath that is my traits. Okay, this describes the characteristics of this guy. Okay, so this guy is diligent. That's good. So diligent is the 4th of the 7 virtues. Most of the traits are done using the 7 deadly sins and the 7 wonderful virtues, or whatever they're called. Okay, so diligent is a virtue. That's why it's in green. It's the 4th one. Okay, and that gives me bonuses. That's a good one to have because it pretty much pumps everything up a little bit. My vassals like me a little more. People who are also diligent like me a little bit more. People who are lazy don't like me as much. Okay, I'm also paranoid. So my intrigue goes up by 2, but my diplomacy goes down by 1. Okay. I'm proud. Okay, so this is the 7th deadly sin. Okay, but proud people tend to be ambitious, so it increases prestige. Okay, that's a quote-unquote good sin. Okay, then I got temperate. Okay, so moderation. So my stewardship goes up, my church opinion goes up. People who are also temperate like me. People who are gluttonous do not like me. Okay, so those are my traits. And then I have this book. It sort of looks like a book or a tablet or something like that. So So this book or tablet is basically my profession or my class. And that is a mastermind theologian. Okay, so I'm like a scholar. So my diplomacy goes up, my stewardship goes up, my learning goes up, my fertility goes down a little bit, which is not so good. And my intrigue goes down by a little bit. So that's basically where all these traits all come from. And then underneath here I have a whole bunch of tabs. It shows me my family. These are my siblings. This is my father. He's dead. This is my grandfather. He's dead. It doesn't show my mother or my grandmother or my other grandfather and my other grandmother. I don't have any wards. I don't have any children. Okay. For relationships, friends, rivals, marriage ties, and lovers. For vassals, these are all my vassals. These are all the people who are currently in my court in Holland. So I have the people who are like the baronies and stuff that are in here, plus a couple of courtiers and my spy master. Okay, I have one ally, and that is my half-brother, who is the Count of Jülich. He is also the Count of Luxembourg, too. Okay. And then these are people who would normally be in my court, but are abroad, meaning they're at a foreign court. Okay, so that's nice. This is a mini-map. I have a whole bunch of different map modes, and we'll use those in a little while. This shows my domain and my court, and it shows what my court guys are doing. If you don't have these panels open right now, you can click on Outlier Category Configuration, and I have all of these checked off, basically. Navies, armies, land combat, hostile sieges, trade, domain, characters of special interest, and court. So that's why I got all these. This is going to be my message board, high and low priority messages. Messages will show up here once the game gets started. Okay, and then the last thing is I've got a whole bunch of tabs up here that go and do all sorts of different things. And we'll go into those as we need them. And then up here I have sort of like alerts. These are all the things that I need to sort of pay attention to. Things that require my attention. So let's look through them. Okay, so I got a title loss on succession. What that means is that if Duke Anselm dies right now, those 4 titles won't be there. Won't be a part of these titles when this guy takes over. My other half-brother will take the Duchy of Brabant, the County of Brabant, the County of Breda, and the County of Hainaut. Okay, because of the way that the succession laws are working right now. So that's a little bit of an issue. The ruler is unmarried. So we need to get Duke Anselm married so that he can make some heirs of his own, so that his stuff doesn't go to his half-brothers and break up the 2 duchies. My domain is too big. We talked about it before. I've got 7 holdings, and I'm only supposed to have 4. So it's causing inefficient taxation, troop recruitment, and resentment among my vassals. The other problem that I have is the next one, which is the County of Sticht is a prince bishopric. The head, if I go to it, this is a church. Okay, so the person who's running it is supposed to be a bishop or an archbishop, and I am not an archbishop. So people who are in this domain kind of get upset. It would sort of be like the mayor of a town running the cathedral. He's not a holy man. He's not a bishop, so it's the wrong thing. So I'm going to have to basically appoint a bishop to that church, and then he'll be one of my vassals. Basically, he'll be like a count, quote unquote. Okay, so and then the last two is I need to pick an ambition, and I'll show you what that's all about. And then I need to pick a character focus. Character focus is with the new way of life DLC. So let's take care of these first. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pick an ambition, and ambitions are right here. Click to choose an ambition. If I click it, I get a whole bunch of options. Okay, I want to become the Chancellor of King Carl's court. I want to become the Marshal of King Carl. I want to become the Steward. I want to become the Spy Master. I want to amass a lot of wealth. Okay, so I want to get I want to get 500 gold, which is a lot. I want to become a paragon of virtue, which means I have 500 piety. I want to become exalted, which means I have a prestige of 1,000. I want to get married, or I want to become the King of Frisia. Okay, and Frisia is the kingdom that Holland belongs to. So how do I know that? Very quickly, if I go to de jure kingdoms, it's a map mode that shows all the geographical and traditional de jure kingdoms of Europe. So if I click on this, okay, here's this orange, this sort of orangish kind of color. And if I zoom out a little bit, there it is. That's the traditional borders of Frisia. Okay? And you'll notice England is here, and Pictland is here, and Denmark is here, and Bavaria is here, Burgundy is here, and so on and so forth. Okay? But Frisia is sort of what I want to be the king of. So I want to basically take this over, if I can. Okay? And then declare myself the king of Frisia, if I pick that ambition. Now here's the deal. If I pick that ambition, it can't be canceled. So either it is the last ambition that I can pick until I'm actually the king of Frisia. But right now, I want Duke Anselm's, I want his ambition to be to get married, because that's the first thing we're going to do for him. Okay, so let's switch this back to the normal terrain. Okay. So, his ambition is to get married. So, let's marry him off. If I click on here, I get an arranged marriage. Okay? And basically what I'm looking for is I am looking for three things. This guy's 48 years old, so I need somebody who is of age already, because I don't want to wait around for the person to get to 16 years old so that I can marry them, because you can only betroth people who are under 16 years old. So, like, if I click and arrange a marriage with, for instance, Gisela, okay, she's only 12. So that becomes a betrothal until she's 16, and then they get married. That's 4 years. If this guy's 40 years old, he'll be 52. And 52 is, you know, way in danger of him dying of just old age. So we don't want to do that. That's the first problem. The second thing that we want to look for is attributes. Because when you look for attributes, the spouse's attributes, half of their scores get added to your scores when you look at state, the state totals. Okay, so if somebody's got an outrageously good let's say, diplomacy, right? Okay, that's not outrageously good. But, like, let's look at intrigue. Okay, here's a 12. Okay, so that would add 6 points onto this score, which would add 6 points onto that score when it gets totaled, which puts it up pretty nicely. Anyway, so let's go back because I wanted that old view. There it is. Okay, so that's the second thing I want to consider. And then the third thing I want to consider is allies. I'm a duke, and if I go to war against another duke in West Francia, I need other dukes to come to my aid, or counts if they don't, if their liege is the king. In other words, if they're not part of a duchy. Okay, for instance, my half-brother is the Count of Julich, but he is not part of a duchy yet. Okay, so he could come to my aid. Okay, if I pick, like, the Princess of Lombardy over here as Duke Anselm's wife, the King of Lombardy is not going to come to my aid because I'm just a duke. Okay, it's kind of confusing in the beginning because you think, well, you know, marriage ties are what determines allies, but only certain people can come to your aid. So for right now, I'm looking for duchies that are inside West Francia, or counties that are inside West Francia, that are independent, that they're not part of a duchy. And when I look, Pfalz, okay, is an example of one. Let's see what else. Burgundy is part of Middle Francia, I think. Oh, Thuringia. Thuringia is one. If I look down here. Where is Thuringia? Thuringia is right here. Okay, and that's Duke Radolf's daughter, I think it is. Right? The problem is, if I go down there, let's see, where is she? She's 9. So I'm going to have to wait 7 years. He'll be 55. That's just too long. Okay, so unfortunately, we kind of have to ditch the idea of having Thuringia be our ally. And so, in the other case, County of Pfalz. Here's Pfalz. Here's the Count of Pfalz. His liege is the Duke of Franconia, so that doesn't help. Okay, this is the guy who would come to our aid, not the Count of Pfalz, so that doesn't really help us. So, let's go back here, and I think what we're going to do is, the daughter of King Carl isn't going to help us either, even if she was of age. So let's take a look at age. Well, there's the aunt of King Carl, but that gives us absolutely no lines. That's not very useful. Let's take a look at these 3 princesses. Chaste isn't going to help us at all. So that one's automatically out, because we want heirs. Gluttonous, trusting, charitable, cruel. fortune builder. This one has the best attributes. Let's say kind, ambitious, that's good. Gregarious, that's good. Paranoid, well, we're paranoid too, so that works. And a fortune builder. That's probably the best one. So let's right click and we will write a letter to propose that Duke Anselm and Princess Anselperga get married. And then it shows us we're basically going to get 104. Well, it's 100 plus 3, but it might round up to 104. So, and it's going to show that we're going to get an alliance with the King of Lombardy, which doesn't really help right now, but it may help in the future. So we'll see what happens. Okay. So, okay, so let's send that off. That's going to take care of that part and that. Now, let's pick a character focus. So this is new in Way of Life, and basically what it does is it allows you to focus your efforts on increasing a stat or getting certain bonuses. So for instance, I can take theology, which increases my learning, and it increases temple vassal opinion. Or I could just take scholarship, and my learning goes up by 3. Okay. Or I could do, I can focus on business. So my city vassals, their opinion goes up by 20, and my stewardship goes up by 2. Or I could just focus on rulership. Okay. I could focus on intrigue, plus 3, or I could focus on seduction, which gives me a benefit to fertility and sex appeal. Okay, or I could focus on hunting for martial and an additional health, or war, which just increases my martial, or I could focus on carousing, which increases my diplomacy, or I could focus on family, which gives me a diplomacy plus 2. Health of 1 and a fertility of 25%. Now, I think what I want to do, because I want heirs, is I'm going to focus on family. Duke Anselm concentrates on family life, ensuring better relations between all family members. That sounds fantastic. So let's pick that one. Okay, so that's his focus. And I can't change focus for another 5 years. Okay, so for every 5-year period I could potentially change it if I want to. Okay, so that's that. Let's take care of this problem right here. Here's sticked. Okay, and this is the holder's the wrong holding type. So basically we need a bishop to take my place. Okay, so let's take a look at what we got. Here's my court. Now, I already have a bunch of bishops, but they're in charge of other stuff. Okay, and I don't want to, I don't want to have them do multiple things, because then they might get a little too powerful. So, let's take a look at what we got here. Here's my spy master. I don't want to choose him because if I choose him, then he'll leave my court. Which is kind of a pain in the neck. This guy's got a negative opinion of me. This guy's got a fantastic opinion of me. So why don't we do this? Why don't we take a look at this guy? He's charitable, he's content, he's craven. That's fine. He's diligent. He's an underhanded rogue. Okay. Let's grant him the title of the Count of Sticked. Okay. So let's do that. Okay, so here we go. Now he's the Prince Bishop Frutari of Sticked. Okay. He thinks I'm fantastic. which is a good thing, because now he'll vote for everything that I say, basically. And now my domain size went down to 6 of 4. My vassals went up by 1, because he is now one of my direct vassals. Okay. There is an inheritance warning, but I don't think it'll pass out of the realm. It's just warning me that it's a possibility. And now I have an open council position, which is the marshal. So let's go to council, which is the first tab. So he was like the marshal, or his brother or somebody was the marshal. So let's appoint a new marshal. And basically the cool part about this is that they show up in order of their martial skill. Okay, so let's pick the top guy off the list. Okay, he seems pretty cool. So he's the new marshal. Okay, while we're in this screen, you'll notice all these guys are idle. That's all of these guys. Let's give these guys something to do. So the Chancellor can improve diplomatic relations. They can fabricate claims so that I can invade areas, and they can sow dissent between local nobles and their lieges. So I want to fabricate some claims because I want to make my territory bigger. Let's get back to that in just a little bit. For my marshal, I could suppress revolts or research military tech or train troops. I want to train troops to make my armies bigger. So I'm going to train troops in Holland. Okay, which should increase my levy size by 30%. It increases my levy reinforcement rate by 60%. So if I lose guys in battle, they come training back in this particular county 60% faster. Okay, sounds good. Collecting taxes, I can increase my tax modifier by 32.5%. But people might get upset about that. Right now I'm drawing in 8.25, which is pretty good monthly. So I'm not building anything right now, which would be good for overseas construction. So instead I'm going to research economic tech. And I'll do that in Holland. Okay, my spy master is going to scheme. Because I want to discover plots. So that gives me a 16% increase in discovery of plots. I can also build a spy network, which helps plot power. And I'll explain what that is later when we go into plots. Or I could study technology, which is a nice way of saying stealing technology. But I want to scheme, and I'm going to do that in Holland. Okay. Finally, my court chaplain can proselytize or research cultural tech or improve religious relations. And I think he is going to research cultural tech. So that will allow the spread of technology. We'll talk about that in a little bit. So let's go back to the Chancellor. I want to fabricate a claim. Now, I need to be careful about how I do this. I could fabricate a claim on here, but the king owns this. The king also owns this. The king also owns this. And the king also owns this. These 4 counties are held by the king, who is my liege. So if I go and I fabricate a claim on, say, Gallery, okay, and then I declare war on him, he can bring the entire country against me. That's not so good. Okay, so these 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, those are out. Okay, part of Frisia is Flanders, which is this right here. Okay, so I could fabricate a claim on, say, Ghent. Right? But then I have to take on Flanders, who is this guy. Okay, and this guy can raise 1.35k of army levies. He doesn't have any allies yet. Okay, but he can field 1.35, basically 1,300 guys. I can field 1,800 guys, plus I have this guy, who is my half-brother. Now, presumably he's going to come to my aid, hopefully. Okay, he's not friends with this guy, so maybe Ghent or Bruges would be good to fabricate a claim on. Other possibilities, here's Loon. Loon is not part of Frisia, but it's an independent county. If I look, this guy can only field 433 troops. Unfortunately, he has allies, and these green guys, the guys that are listed in green, he can call. Okay, so he can call the Prince Bishop of Liege to his aid. He can also call the Count of Pfalz to his aid. Okay, so here's Liege. Here's this guy. That's another 215 troops. Pfalz is right here. That's another 260. Roughly 800 or 900 he can call. So I can beat Loon. I can almost beat Loon single-handedly. And I probably could beat them single-handedly. But we'll see. Ghent is in Frisia, so that would probably be the better one to go after. But Loon would be easier to take. So, which way am I going to go? Let's go for the easy pickings. We'll take this one. Okay, and then we'll work on taking these guys out once we build up a little more power. Okay, so that's the court. The next thing I want to do is, we still have this domain too big problem. And part of the problem with that is that we have laws that are working against us right now. Okay, so when they set up Holland at the beginning of, 769, everything is decentralized. Okay, that means that we can have a ton of vassals. We can have 27 vassals, which is a crazy number of vassals for two duchies that only have 7 counties. I can only physically have 7 direct vassals. So that's a waste. Basically what I want to do is I want to increase my centralization, which increases my domain size by 1, and my vassal limit goes down by 5. You see it's plus 5 here, but it's plus 10 there, so it would go down by 5. Okay, so that's what I want to do. The rest of this stuff describes my gender and succession laws. So what are my gender laws? Agnatic cognatic describes the gender laws, and that basically means that the succession goes to the sons first, and if there are no eligible sons, then it goes to daughters, or to females. It goes to males first. If there aren't any eligible males, it goes to females. Gavelkind is kind of a pain in the neck. gaveled kin basically says that the titles are divided among the children equally. So that's kind of a pain in the neck. So gavelkind is kind of a pain in the ass, and the reason why is because, for instance, here's my heir. Okay, he's my half-brother. But I have another half-brother, and that half-brother is going to get the other duchy. So when this guy dies right now, if status quo remains the same, he doesn't make any heirs for himself, so he doesn't have any children. Okay? This whole territory right here is going to go to one half-brother who we're not going to play. And then the other 4 territories and that whole duchy is going to go to this guy who we will play. Now this guy also has Jülich and Luxembourg, which is kind of nice. So basically Jülich and Luxembourg becomes part of Holland when that happens. But we'll be losing this, and that's kind of a shame. So let's change this to low. Okay, so our domain size is going to go up by 1. Vassal limit says +5, but remember minimum says +10, so it's actually we're losing 5 off of this number, which is fine. So okay. Now what happens is the vassals have to vote for this. Okay, so here's all of our list of opponents. Okay, now, of course, nobody's changed their vote yet because the game is paused. So, I think we're set to unpause. So, this is basically us setting up for the beginning of the game. Sort of going through the entire thing, working off all of this stuff, and trying to get the realm settled before we actually start going out and attacking things or taking territory or, you know, actually even unpausing the game. So that's it, guys. I'm going to end here. This is the first video. And when the next video starts, we will unpause the game, and then we will get going and sort of show what happens as the game progresses along. So, hope you had fun, and I'll see you next time.